YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after Sunday's action of NFL Week 2, going over my biggest winners and losers. Going to single out my biggest winners of Week 2, going over multiple takeaways for those teams. I have 4 this week. Then we'll talk about all the other teams that won in Week 2, and I got quick takeaways for those teams. Then we'll talk about the biggest losers, and then for the other losers, some of the other losers, just some takeaways for those teams as well. So this video every week will either go up very late on Sunday night or early Monday morning. Also thinking about adding a takeaways video, just going over the biggest takeaways of the week. So look out for that for week 2. Schedules in the bottom left. We still have our power rankings and picks, score predictions, bets, all of that for week 3 coming up. Excited about that. Like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there. Live analysis during NFL games. A lot more Twitter subs. Get that bonus content listed underneath me. Sponsors in the bottom right. GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GOAT. For both those sites. Have the Buffalo Bills helmet chain on from the GLD shop. We have a giveaway going with them. Links pinned in the comments for anything you are looking for. Check it out. So we are starting with the biggest of the winners for me in week 2. We will go over every team that won eventually, and then we'll talk about most teams that lost, singling out biggest losers, unfortunately, and then some other negative takes on the other losers. But the Falcons came away. I have 4 biggest winners this week. They are one of them. They win 25-24 in a thriller, an impressive come from behind victory from the Atlanta Falcons, which it's always good if you have a comeback, but you got to have more than just that to get on this list here. I thought that's huge momentum going for. I mean, just the difference of starting 1-1 and 2-0 and starting 2-0 with that momentum of that comeback is huge. And the Atlanta Falcons, again, are 2-0, so that also puts them in the big winning column. But you know what they show, the last couple of weeks, but mainly in this game, they have a very, very talented roster, and I think that showed in a game like this. There's talent everywhere. I won't say it's complete, but it's actually pretty more, closer to complete than people maybe give them credit for. Perfect world. The passing game from the quarterback's a little more consistent because there was some struggle, especially earlier in this game, the first half from Desmond Ridder. And then, again, perfect world to be complete. Maybe more consistent play from the edge group there. But again, they showed it across the board. This is a very talented roster, and they could be very sneaky because of that. And they're improving, I think. Improving across the board. But I think the defense, looking at the defense from, the past, not just last year, but the past, but yeah, if you want to look from last year to this year, I think it's very much improved. They're tough. They're going to make you work for it. Yeah, the Packers did do some good things on offense against them, but again, they're going to make you work for it. They really improved as the game went on, very much improved from last year. So very early, but Ryan Nielsen, their new defense coordinator, is a pretty good showing. I like the mixture of coverages, the mixture of different looks. I mean, they'll throw some blitzes in there. You're not really sure when it's coming. So, again, disguising some things. And, again, not to really cover the Packers on this. I thought Jordan Love did all right against those things, given that he's only in his second starting game, or this year, I should say. But the play calling, I think, is better as well. There's some gambling moments that definitely paid off. But, Arthur Smith knows how to scheme things up. And I think another thing to credit him is, he really relies on the run, and Arthur Smith and the Falcons, how he's built this team. They really rely on the run, and the run game was the highlight of the Falcons offense. But to come back, come from behind in a game like this, when you're a team that relies on the run, you're going to have to get unique and find other ways to win. You're going to have to find ways to win the pass game, even if it's not every play. And that made it impressive. Other they did that there. So just more reasons this come from behind victory was impressive. Not just them being 2-0, not just the comeback. And then Bijan, of course, is a game record. You see him getting the ball, maybe not enough last week, and not enough to start this game. And the first time they had the ball, near the goal line, they had that goal line stand. Him only getting the ball around the field one time. Things like that pop up. It kind of gets a little frustrating, but they get him going more and more. And again, he can completely change a game. He can get a first down, a big play at any given time. It's a big-time player that has entered the league. We all knew it was going to happen, so very fun to watch. Another thing that's not really listed there, but 3 for 4 on fourth downs. Huge fourth down at the end of the game. Ridder didn't play the best first half. He played a little bit better in the second half. He was very good on the ground, making people miss, fighting for that extra yard. That came into play with, big third down, fourth downs. there in that one. But maybe there was a little thing, some things that went their way that were allowing them to come back and win this game. But overall, there was a point, too, where it's like, man, it doesn't really feel like the Falcons are in this game, but they are. But at the end of the day, you kind of look back at some things here. I think they were deserving of winning. I think they outplayed the Packers for more than I originally thought for this game. So very much impressed with the Falcons. Again, they do have to be a little bit better in some important spots. More consistent, I'll say, quarterback, edge rush. But they're tough to play. And they're pretty closer to a complete team. I shouldn't say pretty close to complete, but closer to a complete team that people maybe give them credit for. So they were one of 4 giant winners for me. Another one's going to go to the Buffalo Bills after a big disappointment. I mean, one of the bigger losers maybe in week 1 because you play, I know Aaron Rodgers started the game, but you know what I mean. Rodgers out for most of that game, pretty much all that game, and you lose and you pretty much choke it away, a game you should win. You're definitely, one of the bigger losers, but much needed bounce back win. I mean, you needed to bounce back like this. Josh Allen needed to bounce back like that, like he did. He was super efficient, made some big time plays. The touchdown pass to Khalil Shakir was just beautiful. It was pretty. That was something. So I thought, not only a bounce back one for the Bills, but for Josh Allen, which is huge because people start, and he was deserving of the bashing, I guess, because he kind of blew the game. He turned the ball over a bit last week, but it wasn't a new thing. He's had some turnovers pop up, and it made you wonder, like, can this guy take care of the football enough to win, football games, and is he going to start going downhill after we saw him last week? Not everyone thought that, but some people did. So for him to bounce back like that shows the confidence and the the talent level as well for Josh Allen. I love that all playmakers were involved. I mean, James Cook ran all over the place, over 120 yards rushing. He didn't get any touchdowns, though. It's all right if you run that wild. But Damian Harris gets on the board with a touchdown. Latavius Murray had some angry runs in there. One was a touchdown. That's fantastic. You look at the passing game. There's sometimes where it's kind of just Diggs and that's it. Maybe somebody else shows up. But Diggs was pretty productive. Gabe Davis, the most productive of the receivers. Khalil Shakir gets in the end zone. That was we talked about a big time play from Josh Allen. The tight ends too. I mean, if you look at the stats and you look at each one, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, you may say Kincaid kind of productive. You may not. It might not be the highlight, but I thought the tight ends were a big factor in this game, bigger than what the stats would show, even though it showed pretty good things. And it kind of goes to the 12 personnel, which we talked about in the offseason that they may do since they draft Dalton Kincaid, and they did the least amount of it in the NFL last year. But now using 2 tight end sets basically is what 12 personnel is. And they did a little bit and more than a little bit of it in week 1. And they were a little sloppy with it. I don't know if that's actually a fair statement. I think Josh Allen was just sloppy with the ball. Did it have something to do with 12? Or maybe it's things he's kind of getting used to. But it kind of makes defenses think. We talked about it in the offseason as well. Makes defenses think this is a new look Bills. You got to worry about more things. So Dawson Knox, not a lot of yards, but I thought he was getting open, making some crucial catches early. I mean, they weren't like clutch catches or anything like that, but earlier in this game to kind of extend drives. And that was, all right, he's open. Maybe it's because Dalton Kincaid last week kind of opened up those things. The other receivers kind of open up those things. And then they kind of get Dalton Kincaid. They get other receivers going. Then they get Dalton Kincaid going. He's making things happen after the catch as well. So you see I think the 12 personnel and having those 2 tight ends actually opens more up, gets more guys going because it's a tougher game plan for the defense. It's like, all right, they're doing this now. We're not used to this from the Bills, but this can go to this guy. They can go to this guy. Which one's the biggest mismatch problem? Who we focusing on? Because you want to put, you can focus on everybody, but at the same time, not really, because you're gonna have a weaker coverage guy, if you will, on some guys. So I think it actually kind of spreads things around for the Bills. So the 12 personnel has some potential. It showed it here. It's more of a game plan problem. But again, this is new to the Bills. Could they get even better with it? Multiple outcomes here going forward. Could they show more of what they used to do, which was deadly as well? You start to think about it, like the Bills were almost like I don't want to say they were college offense. It's not really fair, but because they were a very good NFL offense. But I guess the style was almost a college offense in the past. Now you're adding more pro style to that with the big time players you have, and it's kind of scary to think about. But then kind of going back to something we skipped over here, the run defense. I mean, Josh Jacobs was held to -2 yards, which is pretty ridiculous because the Bills in the past, they weren't always bad against the run. But there would be big games where they would let up on defense, and they would specifically they would get beat up on the ground. That was in the past, and we kind of saw it a little bit last week. Against the Jets, and then you do worry about Jacobs in this game, and we didn't really see that. They did a really good job across the board. I know the offense kind of responsible for that, and we kind of talked about that in our prediction for this game, that the offense could take away the run just by scoring fast, rapidly, early and often. Put the team away, take the run away. So that was a big part of it as well. Matt Milano also another week with interception, a big time interception. This week it was he mossed Josh Jacobs on that play too. So that was a fun one. So that's a big bounce back game from the Bills. It's a game they should win. I know the Raiders were 1-0. I don't know if they're particularly a strong team this year, especially on defense. So they should do well in this game, but I think they did better than I thought. Everybody involved, run defense, bounce back, 12 personnel. 12 personnel has some potential, tough game plan. So good luck for the Buffalo Bills there. Next biggest winner, the Ravens. The Ravens are on here. How do I word this? I want to say they're on here because of one reason, but that doesn't mean they didn't do anything else. But they were on here the second they got this win because it's a massive division win in Cincinnati. It's one we know the Bengals will be tougher at the end of the year than they are now, but this one in Cincinnati, I mean, just kind of gives them an advantage, going forward. It's gonna be. This might come into play down the road when not only playoffs, not only division, but playoffs as well, seeding. All of the above, and you were missing key players. The people weren't really giving the Ravens a shot because they were missing so many key players. I think it kind of goes in something that we didn't list here on the graphic, but how well coached they are, which we kind of already knew that they're well coached. But to be specific, they're missing key players, and they continue to be a tough team to play, and they can win games against big rivals away. So all those players being missed, offensive line not really a huge factor. With protecting Lamar, even running the football, and then defensively, still missing Marlon Humphrey and missing Marcus Williams, like arguably your two best players in your secondary, and you're still pretty tight in coverage. You're still, for the Bengals to score, they have to throw one up to T. Higgins. He has to make a good play, do what he does. It's going to come down to that, which is a positive to me because they made the Bengals really work for it. So love that. I thought the Ravens were pretty damn effective run, pass, and defense. They ran the ball better than expected. I mean, missing offensive linemen, going against that Bengals run defense, which is usually pretty stout. I thought the run game being as good as it was, being pretty efficient, averaging good chunks on the ground. That wasn't really expected that much, so that was pretty impressive. Pass game wasn't like crazy lights out. But it was very good. It wasn't elite, but it was very good. I thought Lamar had a good game. They kind of got a mixture of guys involved. And again, offense lineman out, it makes it more impressive. Lamar had a very nice touch pass to Aguilar in this game, which was a big moment. It was kind of like where you thought, all right, the Bengals might be coming. They might be able to pull this one off. Before that touchdown, I thought maybe the Bengals could still win this game. I actually thought that was a decent shot. And then I thought they won with defense as well. Remember, 27-24. I thought they won easier in the score show because they had control of this game the whole way. I thought they won by more with the score show too. Remember that the Bengals did score on a punt return, which the Ravens got to clean that up on punt team. But the defense played pretty well. They kind of locked some things down. They were tight in coverage again, missing some guys in the secondary, some key guys in the secondary. The Todd Monken offense, I think, just getting started. Week one, they started a little slow in the first half, and it was like, are the Texans defense good or is Ravens offense a little underwhelming? Second half, they made some good adjustments, showed some things for Todd Monken, and they won the game. Showed some good things. And then here in this game, you get Mark Andrews back, who might be the key piece besides the quarterback. and you kind of see things kind of getting going. They're missing offensive linemen as it is too, so I think it's kind of just getting going, which could be a good thing. Don't show all your cards. Don't play all your cards early in the year, whether it's on purpose or not. I think guys coming back, Mark Andrews coming back, they're kind of just going to get going into things here. They just got to stay healthy. That's kind of the big thing. But the main reason the Ravens are on here, I mean, if you go into Cincinnati and win that game, take that game, regardless of how the Bengals are playing right now, and the Ravens are part of that, obviously, so that's a win. But it's just massive. We're gonna be down the stretch of the year, and we could be looking at this game, and being like, that was a big one. That was a big one that the Ravens hold on to. They were able to hold on to there in week 2. And the fourth biggest winner, before we go over all the other winners and losers, will be the Washington Commanders with a big-time comeback win. So the comeback was impressive, and that's actually not listed here, but there's just other things I really like to talk about, mainly the key points. But comeback was just, but not only do they come back, but they dominate this game. I know the score shows 35-33. And yeah, the Broncos did have a shot at the end, even though there was some luck on their side, but they were given, they did have a shot. But I thought, while coming back, they just completely outplayed the Broncos during this comeback. And I did not like the start, because the Broncos looked like a very good team in the start, and they look like a much better team in the Commanders in the start. So I don't love that, but it's only week 2. They got things going. They made adjustments as it went on. So not only the comeback, but really putting it on the Broncos, looking like the much better team. Offense is so explosive. So good looks for Eric Bieniemy here, but good looks for their weapons. They got playmakers everywhere. You look at the receiver position and the running back position. I mean, Howell's a playmaker. They got playmakers on defense as well. Even some tight ends are a little sneaky. I mean, you got guys like Bates, Logan Thomas, and then Cole Turner as well. So they even got guys there. So it's kind of a collective effort, kind of getting multiple guys involved. You love that, but it looks so explosive, and I love that. And the Broncos defense has been struggling. It's taken a step down, but it's still the Broncos defense. So putting up 35 points, it means something there. It means something. So I got excited seeing this offense in the second half. Running backs are a big part of this offense. And I think they're a game plan factor. I think that really is the key to stretching this field, stretching the defense out. Because Howell does have the arm strength. They do have multiple receivers that can be burners or just big-time players. Terry McLaurin, the leader of that, he had a nasty touchdown in this one, which is a pretty good ball by Howell as well. To kind of really get the more momentum going. So I thought that was huge. But kind of going back to the running backs, Brian Robinson was fantastic. He was fantastic running the football, but catching the football as well. So tough. He can run inside and break tackles. He can get outside too, so it's such a factor really everywhere. Such a factor on the goal line, punching in the end zone. But like I mentioned, running and catching the ball, in the passing game. Then Antonio Gibson, we didn't actually see much from the running game, but he was a factor in the passing game as well, being that pass catcher that he is. Remember, former receiver. So Bieniemy really working these guys in and making the running back such a threat. Like teams got to be worried about Robinson if he's in, running inside, outside, catching the ball. If Gibson in, he's such a factor. He's another receiver out of the backfield that can break tackles. So teams really got to be worried about that. While, again, they can hit that deep ball. They can hit that explosive play at any time. So it really messes with the defense's minds. It really stretches the defense out. So it's a really good look for the talent of this team, where the offense is heading, and Eric Bieniemy, of course, as well, who had some doubt maybe from some. So I just love the explosiveness, and the main, if I specifically, I love Scary Terry, I love the touchdown he did, but the main thing that gets me excited is how the running backs are involved, and again, for the reasons I explained, I think that's a factor. Second half adjustments were beautiful. I felt like they started to tweak things a little bit before that, but fantastic, because the defense, they gave up a lot of points in this game. The defense started very poor, but the defense really got going in the second half. Remember, one of those touchdowns was that Hail Mary, which was a very lucky play. Maybe the Commanders got to do perfect world. They got to do a little bit better on that, obviously. But the defense overall in the second half was much better. Chase Young kind of getting going there. Emmanuel Forbes making plays. So much better in the second half. Commanders defense maybe tends to start a little slower the last couple of years than they end up being too. So get the win. Defense will figure it out. Hopefully, I'm confident with that. And I just see upside. I see upside with Howell. He does hold on the ball a little bit. He takes some weird sacks. His scrambling sometimes is really good, but sometimes is very, very bad. But you see the explosive plays. We knew he had upside, big playability. So we know he has upside. But I see upside all over the place with this Commanders team. Because you look at, again, the defense tends to get better as the year goes on for Ron Rivera's and Del Rio's defense. And they have young players. Chase Young's still kind of just getting going. Montez Sweat's an upside guy still too, even though their rookie contracts are coming to an end. Payne just broke out last year. Emmanuel Forbes is an upside guy. The safety, the duo is very, very young. You can keep naming these guys off here. I mean, Jamin Davis still has upside, St. Juice. So the defense will continue to grow as the year goes on. I'm actually pretty confident about that. Offensively, we can't have full confidence, but it looks pretty good. Howell should be able to get better. The running backs are only getting better. Brian Robinson only getting better. Just in general, Jahan Dotson. In general, the offense under Bieniemy in his first year, only going to get better. And we saw it kind of in effect in this game in the comeback. So you just see the potential. You see the upside. It's a team to get excited about. At the same time, let's not get too carried away because they did play the Cardinals and they did play the Broncos. They did have some clutch wins in those games. So they could be close to being 0-2. Okay, but they're not. They're figuring out ways to win. I see upside. I see explosiveness. So those are things to get excited about for the Commanders. So for week 2, those are my 4 gigantic winners. But let's talk about. We're going to talk about all the other teams that won in week 2. Some takeaways. And these are kind of in order actually how I listed them. Sort of. Seahawks offense, felt like it was back. It's a big time win. I thought about the Seahawks in the biggest winners. Because it's a bounce back game. It's a huge win. They put up big time points against the Lions. A Lions team that's getting a lot of hype that beat the Chiefs last week. The defense is still a problem though. They had the pick 6 was huge. Without that, they probably don't win the game. So you do have to give credit there. And they do have young playmakers on defense, so it should get better as the year goes on. Witherspoon had a big time play in this game, so guys like that. But it's still a problem. They're going to give up a lot of yards in general still. But overall, it's a big winning day. Offense seemed to be back last week. Last week it was bad. At the same time, they didn't have a whole lot of chances because the Rams controlled time of possession. But it's a big-time bounce-back win. I thought Geno was fantastic. I thought the playmakers were fantastic. DK was big, but Lockett, I think, was even bigger, even though he had less yards. Walker didn't do a whole lot, but on the goal line he did, so that was good enough. And a beat up on the offensive line. Don't forget that. Beat up on the offensive line, only give up 1 sack. That's pretty huge. So they almost when they got that pick 6, it was like, all right, probably should be over. Overtime. So they almost let the Lions pull this one off. They execute with a touchdown on the first drive there. The Bucs 2-0. That's fantastic. A lot of people doubted the Bucs. This is a playmaking team as well. They got playmakers everywhere. Baker's a playmaker at the quarterback position. They got Rachaad White going a little bit. But Mike Evans, big-time playmaker. Godwin wasn't too crazy in this game, but we know he's a playmaker. And then on defense, we saw it in week 1 as well. With Winfield, but these guys guys across the board making plays, and the same thing in week 2, just making big time plays, big time sacks when they need it. Shaq Barrett getting a pick 6 in a pretty much to close out the game when the Bears actually still had a shot. So I do think it's a game they should win. The Bears are looking at week 1, maybe the most struggling team in that week, and it was a terrible matchup for the Bears. But the Bucs create that bad matchup. They kind of take away. They take away key things from opponents. They really figured out a run plan on defense against Fields and just the Bears' run game, which that's kind of what they do best if they do anything that good at all. But it was another big time win for the Bucs, and they start 2-0. The Dolphins end up being a very entertaining game on Sunday night. Either they won with a mix of pass, run, and defense. They kind of needed all of them. I guess if there was a downside, some of it kind of disappeared here and there, but, because the passing game looked like elite at times, Tua looked elite at times, end of the first half, but then, some adjustments were made, and then they couldn't really do a whole lot. Tua had a bad pick, but something else kind of picked it up. So that's what I loved there, where like the Mostert had a big time, play, but the defense stepped up when they need to. Xavier Howard had a massive interception this game where the Patriots were kind of moving there. I thought Bradley Chubb had some key plays in this game, in that game. So they won with a mixture of things. The offense still looks very much explosive, but can teams game plan? We saw it last year, mixture with injuries, but teams started to game plan down the stretch. But it looks like maybe the best offensive football right so far. Cowboys kind of showed again that they're a top team. They did play Zach Wilson, the Jets, but the Jets have one of the very best defenses in football. So we thought maybe the Jets keep it close because of that. But the Cowboys' offense was very impressive, which, should it be a surprise that the offense is, good? No, we know the offense is good. But I think against the Jets' defense, for them to go out and do that, Dak to be, very efficient, very good, just the whole offense to be explosive. The defense dominated, but we expected that. Micah Parsons dominated. They took the ball away. We expected that, but the offense played better than expected. They're just continuing to prove, in what they did in week 1, too, that they are one of the top teams in football right now. So very impressive there for the Cowboys. The Colts, when I come away with them, in a pretty big win here. I know the Texans were missing most of their team, but and then Anthony Richardson did go down. But this is what I keep saying. The Colts are so well coached. I think on both sides of the ball, and mainly bringing Steichen in, and it creates a tough game plan. I'm kind of blocking that a little bit, but it just creates a tough game plan because you just don't know what you're going to get from this offense. And even defense, they're mixing things up a little bit more. But, the offense with Anthony Richardson, running the ball, design runs, but him being able to take off at any given time as well, which was big. 2 rushing touchdowns pretty early. Credit the defense with a strip sack in there. So that Steichen offense with having a quarterback with legs it's just tough game plan and deadly. But he comes out, and then having Gardner Minshew, that might be a little better of a passer than Richardson right now, which shouldn't be really much of a surprise. It's not a big deal. He was pretty damn efficient too, passing the football. So just being a tough game plan, and there is a negative here that Richardson did go down, and there's a bigger picture negative where that style of, runner where he battles the contact and the amount of times he takes off and runs, whether it's design plays or him taking off, the down to the line negative is how long does that hold up? He's already banged up in week 1 and week 2 from that. He's going to have to get better as a passer. He's going to have to pass the ball more, which he can do that with time. So there are maybe some negatives from the Colts there, but that is a good win despite the Texans missing some guys. And then more of the winners, the 49ers, similar to the Cowboys last week and this week. Like last week being they were one of the best teams in week 1 and showed that they're one of the most dominant teams, and they won with both sides of the ball. And the same thing this week because the Cowboys came away saying they're just continuing to show that they're one of the top teams, and that's kind of my takeaway for the 49ers as well. That's really my takeaway for them. They just continue to show that they're a very good team, and they can win in multiple ways because they have playmakers everywhere, offense, defense, that can take the ball away. When with that offense, they can get guys like McCaffrey going at any given time, Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings had a monster catch in this game. So, just showing that they're a top team and having those playmakers. Bounce back game from the Chiefs. Was kind of close most of the time. The Jags are a tough team, so there was some thought, could they be 0-2? So good bounce back. Defense played better than expected. I thought the Jags would kind of start getting drives going pretty easy, and there was some questionable the corners giving up too much cushion and not getting out of their breaks well. But then they would kind of lock it down the rest of the drive, especially in the red zone. Knowing that, they don't have the full feel. Let's make, Lawrence throwing out of the back of the end zone a lot, and it really wasn't on Lawrence. It was just really good defense of the Chiefs. I like that Pacheco and Sky Moore got going. I like that a lot in this game. Pacheco needs more carries, kind of saying that after last week as well. But those are guys that they're young playmakers that can play. You kind of got to get it out of them. And I like that they kind of did that in this game. Titans, it's kind of funny that the positive here is no turnovers because they were very much in that Saints game while Tannehill turned the ball over 3 times and they barely lost that game. So no turnovers this game, and they win in overtime. If Tannehill would have turned the ball over, and Tannehill didn't really, he figured it out as the game went on, but he does take some bad sacks. He's just a little slower with the processing. Now, so you could see he's declining a little bit. But if they would have turned the ball over, like if Tannehill would have thrown an interception again, they lose this game. So that was big. The Titans are just a tough team. It's that Titans, Mike Vrabel brand of football. Even last year, they were depleted and they went on a losing streak, but they were tough. every game, to the end, with the Jags, when they played the Chiefs, last year. It's just kind of the Titans brand of football, and we see it in this game because it's a game the Chargers probably should win, where the Titans kind of adjust, figure things out, and they'll play tough on both sides. That run defense is extremely tough, maybe the best in football. Eagles on Thursday night, run game won them the game. They made some plays on defense, some gifts from the Vikings, obviously. But the run game, being able to adjust and go to that run game, was fantastic. DeAndre Swift was very, very impressive in this game. But I thought it was more so the holes that they were opening up for these guys. But they did start a little slow. Hurts wasn't really right in the past game. Play calling wasn't too great, but they kind of figured it out there. And the Giants, just an incredible comeback. I mean, to come back from down 21, that's a big-time win. On that alone, I love the adjustment in the second half. It shows the coaching and it shows the ability for the players to adjust and get better. Jalen Hyatt, and they need more Jalen Hyatt because the guy can play. I thought Daniel Jones played really good in the second half, because he was playing for 6 quarters, counting week 1. He was playing pretty bad football. Barkley, too. Another turnover that Barkley was responsible for. But then he did end up hurt at the end of this game, which is tough. Ankle sprain, but he really got going, kind of going beast mode a little bit in some of those plays in the end. So everybody stepped up. Credit the adjustments, the coaching staff. Maybe some momentum with this comeback because they look like the worst team in football for, again, like 6 quarters. So this could turn things around with a pretty good, pretty tough, I should say, schedule coming up. Are they huge winners on the day? I mean, when you make a comeback like that, like you should be, but at the same time, it's like it's the Cardinals and the Giants again for 6 quarters, for 2 quarters. This game looking like the worst team in football. There's still some issues. They don't really feel particularly strong anywhere on this roster. Like, of course, there's players like Dexter Lawrence that is a strong player, but in terms of like units and parts of this team, as a team, are they particularly strong? No, we don't know. We don't see that yet. So that that's a thing there. And then on to the losers here. I think the biggest losers is actually another page of biggest losers and some other negative takes. But the Bears look like one of the sloppiest teams in week 1 last week, and it's kind of the same thing in week 2. Just not good on offense and defense. Giving up over 400 yards. Defense wasn't the main issue, but giving up over 400 yards to the Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, not ideal. And offense is very much, rough. You get the run game taken away, no answers. You got to be able to do that. And just nothing going for them there. And they get a big-time field goal block, and then they can't do anything with it. They take some bad sacks. And right now there's some big issues at the quarterback position, I think, is 1. And then 2, the staff. Because the design, the players not being prepared, the design of some of these plays, and some are actually really good, though, when they get DJ Moore going, and there was some here and there last week. And the plays that work, which the quarterback has to be on when they work too, they look pretty good, but there are some questionable play calling. But I do think they're trying to call plays around kind of a limited quarterback here, which is unfortunate because Fields has a lot of upside, a lot of those traits that where he could. He has talent. It's in there somewhere, so it is a little unfortunate. And then given, you do wonder why you throw a screen, at the end that close to your own end zone. But I think Fields even answered it, because they wanted to pass the ball there. So I guess the solution would be hindsight, I guess, run the football. But they're trying to come back with limited time, drive the field. So you understand it has to be a pass. But Fields, kind of going back to that, he almost answered it when asked about that play. Like a normal pass play, he would have to drop pretty far back. And Fields has been dropping pretty far back, whether the protection is good or not. He's decided to drop pretty far back and sit back there a little bit. So I think the play calling, what they're thinking was do we want to have this guy drop back to the back of the end zone? On the slip screen, it's like making you don't have to drop all the way that far back, making the defense think a little bit and then dump it off. The negative is that is a little bit of a delayed play, so it's very risky there. So the staff, a little questionable, but they're trying to work around some things. I thought Fields had a worse game this game than the last game even. Offensive line was fine in this game. The interior could be a little bit better, but the offensive line was fine. He took some bad sacks. He's kind of standing there in one spot, and he forgets sometimes that he has legs. It's just standing in one spot, not seeing open receivers. See DJ Moore getting frustrated. I mean, he gets a ball to Claypool in the end zone, finally tries to get him going. He makes a play on it. So I think the main thing here is again, the offensive line was fine in this game. There's far worse out there for sure. The main thing was the quarterback in this game. Whether you like it or not, that's just what it was. So the Bears, it's been a rough go. They're still very much a rebuilding team. And the Cardinals, if they can't win that one, I don't know which ones they're going to win. I mean, the Cardinals, like, the coaching seemed good in the first half. They're coaching up a roster better than it's supposed to be. And, there was some good things on both sides of the ball. Josh Dobbs looked tough in the first half. James Conner, Hollywood Brown. So it's like the Cardinals here. That's a positive here. The Cardinals, are they going to be a free win for everybody? Maybe not. They'll play you tough. They'll make you work for it. But, I mean, if you can't win that one, against a team that's not the toughest in football, against a team that is playing as bad as they can play, like things going the Cardinals' way, having a 21-point lead, like if you can't win that one, like what games are you going to win? And I guess maybe not the biggest negative because Cardinals front office is probably okay with it. It's a rebuild team. They're about the future. So, but again, I don't know which ones we're going to trust them to win. Like how are we going to pick them in any games? I'm sure they'll find a win there. And it's almost the same thing for the Broncos. If you can't win that one, the way the Broncos played to start this game, that's as good as the Broncos can play, it feels like. I was impressed. I kept saying it. I was like, whoa, like, okay, this is something. This is something here. Like the passing game, everything. And like this is like that's what I'm thinking. Like this is good. This is probably as good as the Broncos can play, though, but it's a big game here. A must-win game, I think, in week 2. So for you to play as good as you can play and then lose the game and just kind of have a meltdown, like how many games are going to win? Like are they, because they're going to have to be on their best game for 4 quarters. There's some teams that, they're the great ones, only have to be on in 1 quarter sometimes, and most time they're on for 4 quarters as it is. There's some teams that get away with it being on for only a half. The teams that beat them, and the Giants beat the Cardinals. But the Broncos are going to have to be on their game, and there's going to be games where they're not on their game at all, like no quarters, but they're going to be on it for 4 quarters. So that's not the best look for trying to win. The defense definitely took a step down. I kind of talked about that, though. I kind of talked about during last year and then going into this year where people were kind of talking about them a top 10 defense. But, and again, their defense did take a step down from last year. But what I talked about was teams really hit the brakes against them because they had the game won. The Broncos couldn't do anything on offense. It felt like last year when teams absolutely had to move the ball and score, they did it. I mentioned it all last year. I mentioned in the offseason. People wanted to argue with me. And it kind of felt like that in a game like this. And again, the defense was better mainly because of coaching last year. But, Commanders had to go score. They were able to, the Commanders aren't supposed to have that type of offense. And they went and put it up. So the defense doesn't seem right. The run defense definitely doesn't seem right. So I guess that's on the decline. On the Chargers, just still can't close. That's kind of been a common theme. They just cannot close out games. This is a game they should win. I know Eckler's out, but I think the inactives favored them, gave them the advantage. They were going to have to win with the pass in this game regardless because the Titans are the best in football. They've been the best in football. Elite stopping the run. Incredible stopping the run. You're going to have to win with the pass. You have Justin Herbert. Too much talking. You have playmakers. You have that passing game. Win with the pass. Go and do that. And the Titans are missing 2 big-time players in the secondary. And I guess Herbert was pretty effective. They got to close out a little bit better, though. They just got to find a way there. But, kind of going back to that was the reasoning of my, the inactives kind of favored them actually a little bit. I don't know if Eckler changes a whole lot. Maybe he doesn't go to overtime. Maybe they win it, but they got to close this thing out. They can't go 3 and out in overtime. Just remind me, they got the ball back against the Dolphins when they were scoring, moving the ball all game, and they couldn't do anything on that last drive. It's kind of the same thing. Like, soon as it's, and it's weird because usually it falls on the quarterback, like 99% of the time. Even when people are saying it's on the quarterback, I go, winning is a quarterback stat for a reason. Quarterbacks find ways to win, but this is kind of the one exception I make because it never really seems to be on Herbert. People, the rest of the team, the coaching staff kind of just fold under the pressure in where they got to close out games. So Staley and we knew that he stinks, but the defense stinks. Saw it last week. saw it this week. You have that many yards to the Tennessee Titans with their, declining quarterback and their terrible offensive line without their best offensive lineman. They're kind of one-dimensional. You stink. The defense stinks. It shouldn't be that bad. Staley, a defensive coach. And then Kellen Moore, does he stink? It's kind of a question mark, because he relies on having a run, it seems like, and it hasn't really been able to close it out either. It's kind of a question. I'm not making a statement there. Starting 0-2, could be 2-0, but a game they should win. It's a game that's like, it's kind of borderline pathetic that you lose it, so that's kind of tough. And then the last of my biggest losers, but I will talk about some negatives from other teams that lost. But the Packers, you blow a lead like that, you're a loser in general on the day. But, the Falcons are a team that they can't get much going in the pass game. Ritter's struggling a little bit. So to blow a lead to a run-first team is brutal because, and for them to be able to keep the run involved, with Ritter and with the run game, the running backs, because it's tough to come back with running the ball when you're a run-first team because you're going to have to pass the ball. You don't want to run too much clock, so that's tough. They allowed that and allowing them to get some big passing plays in there here and there as well, allowing them to convert fourth downs. They were 3 for 4 on fourth down. That's pretty tough. The offense got stale. I mean, there was a portion of this game where, and I still do. I have a positive takeaway from Jordan Love and a positive takeaways from some of these young playmakers they have. Jaden Reed, Wick scored. Musgrave looked good last week, but they have some young playmakers. And Jordan Love picking up blitzes, looking smooth again. He could do a little bit more explosiveness, more big plays down the field, I suppose, more completions to win this game. But, I think he looks good. So that's a positive, but it's also a negative because he looks pretty good. They got young playmakers playing better than expected, but you're finding ways to blow this game and lose it. Go close it out. And I think that goes to the offense being stale and being predictable. I think there's not much going for it. The Falcons defense was able to really get going and kind of stop them, get the ball back for the offense. In situations where there was multiple situations where the Packers had really good field position to start the game. Fourth down, the 1 4th down that the Falcons did not get. And you can't really figure out how to close, how to finish, and how to execute. And that's tough. So going forward, I kind of wonder with this team. You first glance, you're like, okay, Jordan Love looks pretty good. He's young. He's going to get better. Their young, weapons are young, going to get better. So they should be able to get better as the year goes on. And I agree with that statement. But at the same time, it's like this offense gets so stale, gets so predictive as this game goes on. What's it going to be like as the year goes on? Because that's the difference every single NFL season for teams from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. More of a game plan. Some coaches, teams kind of get figured out. So is this offense going to get figured out more and more as the year goes on? So it'll be harder for Jordan Love. That's what I kind of wonder with a game like this. And they do have injuries starting to pile up more and more. So now Elgin Jenkins getting into the mix there. So that's tough. Not great for the Packers when there was some hope for them. About halfway through this game, it's like, is this team the favorite to win the NFC North? And you say, not so fast now. And the Bengals, bad loss, and it's not, every time you lose, it's a bad loss, but home against a depleted Ravens team, must win because it's going to be a AFC North / playoff implicated game down the line. You can't lose that one. And then Burrow just doesn't seem right. And the injury, maybe re-aggravated it, he said, maybe that's bothering him. I'm still staying optimistic about down the stretch because the Bengals do tend to do this. A lot of dink and dunk to this offense. I don't like that. But Zach Taylor just figures something out at the end of years or, more than just the end of the year. So I'm going to stay optimistic, but this was a bad loss that could, even if they turn it up at the end of the year, we could be looking back at this one and be like, oh, that cost them the division. That cost them seeding. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's pretty tough. So and especially who was out for the Ravens, you can't lose that one. And then to finish this video off here, other negatives, the defense is rough, which I projected. I thought it'd be one of the worst defenses in football. It looked pretty good in week 1, but it was the Broncos. You can't really have any takeaways from that one. And they were so bad. And I know it's the Bills. I know they're explosive. I know they were angry after the last loss, but man, they could have done about anything, they wanted there. And it's just, the Raiders don't have enough guys to cover the, guys like the Bills have. Again, the Raiders got the run taken away from them. They had negative, Josh Jacobs had -2 rushing yards. That's tough. The offense didn't do a whole lot. That's tough. But why? What was the main reason? It's because the defense. the time of possession. The Bills held on the ball for so long because they can get anything that the Raiders defense was giving them. They were giving them everything, so it limited it big time. It limited the Raiders offense. So the offense almost didn't get a fair shot because of the defense. It's a bad defense there. But at least they're 1-1. I think the offense probably can move the ball if they're giving a shot. So pass defense hasn't improved still for the Lions. The Seahawks beat up on the offensive line. They're missing their tackles, and the Lions pass rush really can't do much. One sack ain't going to cut it. And in week 1, they weren't that hot in terms of the pass rush either. Some people may disagree, but I think it was really just the stunts and having Hutchinson go on the inside, kind of scheming those things up, really got them going here and there. But just strictly off the edge or just straight from the interior on your typical pass rush plays, they really can't get anything going. It's one they really should get going. In this one, maybe relying on the blitz a little bit. So that's pretty tough, and they're going to give up plays through the air still. They're going to struggle through the air. The run defense, I guess, was all right, besides on the goal line, but, can't really blame them too much there. But so the pass defense still really hasn't improved. In that one, the Vikings are still very much sloppy with the turnovers, and the offensive line's a problem. Kirk Cousins getting hit like crazy, and they're beat up on the offensive line. Again, why aren't they, Lions, what they have going for them, they're still very much explosive on offense, so they're not a big loser on the day. The Vikings, even though they turn the ball over on offense, they're still very much explosive on that passing game, and they're very close to being 2-0, but it's been tough for them. So the Jags might be one of the more inconsistent teams in football right now, but at the same time, being a good football team, you would think. It's just weird, because they have these explosive, elite plays, and then they're gone, and they're not getting any points. And then they're explosive plays, and they're gone, not getting any points. And the same thing's kind of on defense as well, I suppose. But mainly offense in this game, they would start drives well, make big plays on the receivers on the outside, the comebacks, the back shoulders were open, getting downfield. The way they were able to get, to midfield or et cetera, they probably should have scored a lot more points in this game. As soon as they get in the red zone, there was problems. So I guess they have a problem closing out things as well. I think the inconsistency kind of plays a part with that. So many balls where Trevor Lawrence, and really not even this, just this game, throwing it out the back of the end zone, but he is making it catchable. They're kind of really, so I'm not really blaming Lawrence. They're just making him kind of throw it back there. And just so many balls getting thrown away where it's like this kind of waste of possessions in the red zone, waste of possessions in general, just coming away with no points or just a field goal. It's a tough one. And the interior offense line is an issue. We saw it last week. We saw it again this week. It's a little bit of an issue there. We got to close out some drives. The defense played fairly well, better than expected. The offense was worse than expected. The defense was better than expected, so that's why they're not a biggest. And they played the Chiefs, so that's why they're not one of the biggest losers. And the Texans, injuries are tough going into this game, and how long will it be? And that, they can win a game like this if they're healthier on the offensive line. But there was some positive, for again, some of these teams have some positives. The Lions still explosive on offense. The Vikings explosive on offense. The Jags defense played well. The Texans, the C.J. Stroud for a second game, rookie. I thought C.J. Stroud was pretty decent. Pretty smart for a rookie. The arm talent's there. You see the accuracy. You see he can move a little bit. I want a little more of that, but getting things going, getting better and better as the game goes on. You wish there was a little bit more closing out in the red zone. You saw Tank Dell getting going. So there is some positives. I do think Stroud could, he insists when he escapes pressure on getting outside. There was some lanes for him to, step up in the pocket and throw or run up the middle. I want him to run, scramble a little bit more. It's a kind of common theme. Like some of these running quarterbacks, I'm telling them they got to pass more. But Stroud, I actually want to run a little bit more. And then given that he had a pretty brutal offensive line, Stroud's going to be, I think where we had him in terms of a prospect evaluation, I think he's going to be on point. I think he's going to be a special player, so some good signs there. But finding ways to win games will fall on the quarterback. So there is some negatives there, but I'm not really too worried about them here. So some of these teams that lost, I guess there is still some positives. But when you lose, and when you're 0-2, two of those teams, it's really a negative. It's never that good. So that'll be it for my winners and losers recap video. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I kind of listened to the suggestions in the comments last time. They want to talk about all the winners. We won't highlight all the losers every week. I don't think too many people will complain about that. We left out a couple teams here. But mainly want to highlight those big-time winners and big-time losers. Thinking about a separate takeaways video, like the biggest takeaways, we always got content cooking up here at the Goat House. And so hopefully you guys can join us, like, subscribe to notifications on, follow us on Twitter. There's links pinned in the comments. Very important links down there. Can't wait for our week 3 content. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.